Alexander Marks, for the record, with the Nevada State Education Association. During the 2017 legislative session, Senator Woodhouse sponsored Senate Bill 303 at NSEA's request. The bill, which had bipartisan support in the Assembly and Senate, required the Department of Education to create and carry out a plan for auditing the assessment tools and examinations used to monitor the performance of pupils and schools for kindergarten through 12th grade in the public school system in Nevada. The report was to include a plan to improve and streamline the assessment tools and examinations used to monitor the performance of pupils and schools in the public school systems. Unfortunately, the audit, which was due no later than December 1st, 2017, was not submitted by the department until January of 2019. The final report did not follow the requirements set forth in SB 303. The department's report is written with a certain result in mind that simply does not conform to the realities of our classrooms. The audit does contain some information, some important information about the amount of time teachers are spending administering these assessments. For the SBAC annual assessment, 69% of district test directors stated that way too much time or slightly too much time was spent on assessments. For the SBAC interim assessment, 84% of district directors stated way too much time or slightly too much time. These percentages only highlighted the necessity for a plan to improve and streamline assessment tools and examination. This audit fails to address those very important elements in 303. After a 13-month delay, the report failed to make recommendations for streamlining student assessments. While tests like the SBAC and end-of-course exams are widely disliked, the department recommends more funding to communicate to stakeholders about the, quote, benefits of these assessments. Educators know the benefits and shortcomings of these assessments and tests and appreciate the need to spend less time testing and more time teaching. It's that simple. The department's recommendation that a communication strategy about the benefits of certain assessments disregards the purpose of 303 in the first place. The department's audit totally misses the mark, and it's time for the legislature to ensure our educators and students have more time teaching, learning, and less time testing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Natha Anderson. I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association. I worked closely on this bill with Senator Woodhouse and Senator Dennis last session, so I was very excited about it and the possibility of finding out some different things. And then the report came out, and I felt dejected and upset and disappointed. No place in that report is there any sort of mention of some of the items that we talked about when it came to the stress that our students experienced. No place in the report were there recommendations as to how to streamline the number of tests that we are required to give to our students. Where literally, and actually the person sitting next to me might be bringing up, where literally we have kids crying, where our testing policies now have to have an element as to what to do if a student throws up on a test. There is nothing in this report that states that. I just was so dejected and disappointed when I was reading the report. I did, however, appreciate in the key finding number 2, the phrase, a considerable amount of time being devoted to setting up these tests. And so I felt like there was an insinuation that there was an understanding about how these tests are taking away from actually teaching. However, as you continue to read it, there's nothing in there to say that we need to streamline the number of tests we give. There's nothing in there to show that the formative or summative assessments that are being created by a PLC or even an individual teacher working with other educational leaders at their school site are recognized as just as important as a statewide test. And I appreciate as well Dr. Moore's statements after Senator Hammond's comments regarding the different types of testing. But the realities are currently the report that has been turned in is demeaning to educators. It basically says at one point, well, they just don't know how to read the report correctly. That is unacceptable for us. We are educators. We love teaching our kids, and these tests take up too much of our time. This report does not do what it needs to, which is figure out a way to streamline the number of tests we have to give. I look forward to working with a new leadership at the Department of Education to figure that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Brian Ripon. I am a science teacher in Douglas County, and I have some remarks for myself and also from a colleague, so I don't know if I can get some extra time, who was unable to be here. My comments are that the only authentic assessment is done by the real teacher in the actual classroom, and the idea that we need any of these tests is not correct in my assessment. We do not need to be feeding the data monster to figure out what our kids need to know and to learn. For example, I have a daughter who's currently a senior. By the time she was in 6th grade, she took versions of the math test 52 times. Every single time, she was within a few percentile of average, meaning 50%, sometimes 51, sometimes 49. At that point, I decided I do not need this child to ever again be told she is completely average. Last night, I just watched her start for the regional championship or regional playoff basketball game up at Hug High School. She's been admitted to the University of Nevada, Reno, and she is an Honor Society member. We do not need to be feeding this data monster. It is unreal. I also wanted to reflect for a moment on the presentation. The air and the joy were sucked out of this room when that presentation was happening. Not once was child, student, person mentioned. It was a clinical report that was as detached from schools and the students that are taking these tests as the students feel from school and joy of school when they take these tests. Every single category of assessment is done by the classroom teacher. And what's not mentioned in the report is additionally are not just the SBAC, but now we have interim SBAC to predict where you might be low on the SBAC. So then when you take the SBAC, you can show growth for the SLGs and things like that. The report and the idea of the overall category of testing does not include the depth and the pervasiveness of the testing of the get ready for the testing. Thank you.
Thank you. On the other one, if it's written, if you could submit that, that would help save some time because we'll definitely get that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Chairman Dennis and committee members, my name is Mary Alber. I'm a founder of the Education Innovation Collaborative. I have been for 5 years struggling with the very question that you are addressing today because the assessment system of our education system is broken and we need to find another way that meets everybody's needs. And right now, I'm hearing some reasons for getting rid of testing altogether. I would first argue that we do need some form of a summative assessment to compare how our kids are doing in basic knowledge and competency in English, math, and science. I also argue that we need a broader set of assessments to cover things such as social emotional competence. Are they personal and interpersonally competent at dealing and working with other people? Are they, in fact, ready for the workplace and for higher education? And the measures we're using today aren't even touching on many of those aspects: critical thinking, higher order thinking, creativity, collaboration, et cetera. What I would like to offer as a solution is what is being developed around the country in terms of competency-based education, and which this esteemed group passed a bill last session, AB 110, in competency-based education. What it allows for is a whole new way of doing assessments that are embedded, that are formative, and not assessment and standardized such that every child is a widget to be produced from the factory of school. Instead, we can acknowledge every student in the voices you've heard today from the teachers who can see and understand every student as an individual, unique being with different needs and purpose and goals in life. Let's empower the kids to be the drivers of their own education, empowered from within and motivated from within, with teachers and educators and parents being their coaches. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Melissa Sewell. I'm the president of the Washoe Retired Education Association. So I was a teacher in Washoe County for 30 years. I taught primary. When I was teaching primary students, I really saw firsthand the effects of too much time spent testing. So over the years, we would start the school year, and I taught first and second grade. We would give an assessment at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. Did they make their growth in reading and math? And this was done within the classrooms. So that wasn't any big deal until it became monthly. And then it became weekly. And an entire afternoon would be spent assessing kids instead of teaching kids. So that was my Friday afternoon. Have you ever tried to teach second graders on a Friday afternoon? Okay, this is not their favorite thing to do. And things like art and PE and hands-on learning, no, we don't have time for that because we have to assess. And that was really not much fun. It took a lot of the joy out of learning. It took the joy out of teaching, and it's one of the reasons that I ended up retiring. I think that between the SBACs, the MAPs, the CRTs, I don't even know what it is anymore because I've been retired. It's driving teachers out of the profession, and it's taking the joy out of teaching. So I think that that needs to be considered as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Mike Ashton, I'm a math teacher in Douglas County School District. There are two conflicting needs and finite needs in education, time and money. And our assessment program, I think, drains both of them to a greater extent than we really fully understand, and the report did not address. The time to make that beautiful picture that we post online to say this is how our schools are doing isn't just the time to give those assessments. It's the time that administrators spend doing interim assessments, doing test prep, teaching them the platform that the SBAC is given on versus the platform that they will take the end of course exam on versus the platform that they will take the ACT on. And we become not an education facility, but a test prep facility. And administrators pressure us as teachers to raise scores at all costs, and it ultimately is the cost of the student's ability to think, to reason, to consider for themselves the world around them, and to make choices that will prepare them for a successful and productive future. The resources that we have obviously need to be used as best we can. We can't get time back. Time passes, but we can control the way in which we use the financial resources that we do have. How much of that resource is spent in testing needs to be considered, and in my opinion, greatly reduced. I spent an entire day at the end of last school year administering the math end of course exams. We started at 7:30 in the morning. The last student finished at 1:30 that afternoon. That was the longest, most miserable day of my career, watching students suffer through those end of course exams, where one question in a geometry test was an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Read it, understand it, pick from 4 choices. That is not effective use of time or resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to Las Vegas.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Wadi. I'm a former Washoe County School District educator, and I would like to read this statement from Phil Sorensen. He is both a teacher in Douglas County, Nevada, and the president of the Douglas County Professional Education Association, and this is his response to the SB 303 testing audit published on January 16, 2019. The West Ed report supports testing, but is not an audit at all. I could not find any quantitative data that described how many hours per year students spend testing in the state of Nevada's public schools. References to time exist in the document, but no clear description of the actual amount of time spent testing exists. The audit explains that the primary source of data for the audit came from surveys and interviews with the 19 district test directors, or DTDSs. To be clear, DTDSs are those individuals employed to direct testing in each of the school districts. These individuals clearly view the usefulness of testing in a positive light and therefore biased responses. The audit does include focus group data. I will point out that this data was collected prior to SB 303 in 2016 and included a total of 39 stakeholders from across the state. Testing was not the priority of the focus groups. Its original intent was not as an audit tool at all. I know that in my district, the focus group meeting was poorly publicized and took place at a time inconvenient for teachers to attend. Because of the design of this audit's methodology, inherent bias exists in the document in favor of the status quo of state testing in Nevada.
I need you to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you can always submit that too if you didn't finish.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
For the record, my name is Chet Miller. I'm a PE teacher at Hollingsworth Elementary School in Clark County and president of the NEA of Southern Nevada. Let's face it, Nevada students are over-tested. Teachers know it, parents know it, and students absolutely know it. We expected this audit to prove that what we already knew, that we spend too much time testing. Unfortunately, a plan to address this situation is not addressed in the bill. And we need to take a hard look at ways to streamline the assessments and those tools that we use, and they need to be purposeful for the students and the educators. All educators know that assessment tools are important, but these tools need to assist educators in the role of providing instruction to the students. High-stake tests that are used as a means to reward and punish students do not do that, and teachers spend way too much time preparing for these tests. You would think that as a PE teacher, I wouldn't feel the impact. But at least I thought that when I became a PE teacher. This year, however, it became mandated by the district that I change my program to include language art assessments. This is a direct result of the district trying to increase time on test preparation. This is my example of how student time is being impacted, and I know from our members that I'm not unusual. It just took a lot longer to reach me in physical education. Teachers are reporting that they are being mandated by schools to have their students take multiple reading tests, math tests, and language arts assessments, in addition to the state-mandated SBAC. This is time taken away from teaching, and we really need to focus on that aspect of providing students what they need rather than testing them all the time on what they have. So let's work on trying to find a streamlined method of reducing tests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dennis and members of the committee. My name is Vicki Cradle, and I teach second grade in CCSD. But I could safely say that I am a test prep teacher because I spend much of my valuable teaching time preparing students for testing. See, we don't do the SBAC testing in second grade, but we've seen that waiting until third grade to prepare for the test is too little, too late. And since so much depends on how our students do on this test, it becomes the target. Don't get me wrong, being able to do well on a test is an important life skill, but there's a lot more to helping students be successful in life than just testing. And because our administrators are doing everything possible to raise our test scores too, we often have layers of formative and summative tests that we're required to give our students. We need to take a closer look at how much time teachers are allowed to use for testing and test preparation. We want to do what's best for our students, what helps them grow, learn, and flourish. Over-testing our students does not do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Hello, members. Ian Lattice. I'm a I'm a high school teacher at Legacy High School here in Las Vegas, and I'm a member of NEASN. Most of my comments I'm going to say ditto, given that they have been mentioned by the wonderful colleagues here today. However, I do want to address some points as a bit of a reminder for my time to those of you on this committee. One thing that I'd like to remind us is that this report was done specifically to see if we can have any help for students in Nevada. Now, while this report was supposed to be submitted by December 1st, it was actually submitted a month later. So I just like to point out that it seems they didn't remind them or they didn't remember anything from deadlines that teachers always like to stress. I'd also like to point out that in my school alone, and this may be the case for many high school teachers here in Las Vegas, one thing that they always train us to do specifically for these assessments is to say we cannot tell you what is on the exams. We cannot release this information to anyone, or we may lose our jobs. So again, I'd like to just end by asking, who are we trying to protect with this audit? Is it specifically to help teachers, or is there something else going on here? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's come back up here to Carter City.
Mr. Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association. Senators, it's no secret there is bad blood between people who are at this hearing. Yet, as bad as that may be, it may not be as bad as over-testing in Nevada classrooms, as I believe we're all here saying much of the same thing. 2 years ago, I sat right here with Senator Woodhouse presenting SB 303, and unfortunately, it seems like we are largely in the same place that we were then. Senator Woodhouse, thank you for your leadership on this issue and your forbearance. I don't think I have the same amount of that stuff. Since we're in the same place, I'm going to read a little bit of what I actually read 2 years ago in the presentation of the underlying bill, and it was from the focus groups that were conducted by WestEd in 2016 that were supposed to be part of the basis of this audit. From the focus groups, participants consistently reported that there were too many state assessments that took too long to administer. Participants in every focus group believed that there were redundancies within the state assessment system that should be eliminated, resulting in fewer tests. They expressed a desire for a shorter administration period for tests. Participants identified a number of ways that assessment negatively impacted the educational system. The most common concern was loss of instruction time. Estimates of the instructional time lost directly to test administration range from 4 days for one set of students to 1 month for all tests in a school. Participants also noted that instruction is negatively impacted due to pressures to, quote, teach to the test and imposing time constraints on instruction. Participants identified ways that state assessments indirectly affected instructional time through accommodations made to school schedules. Participants were also concerned about the effects on students, noting that frequency and duration of the state assessment system led to adverse behavioral outcomes. In other words, disengagement in the classroom, not trying hard on tests, test fatigue, missing classes. Look, a month ago, the new governor of Nevada, Governor Grisham, issued an executive order taking, New Mexico, not Nevada, Sisolak in Mexico, Grisham in New Mexico, Sisolak in Nevada. So anyway, Governor Grisham issued an executive order taking New Mexico out of the PARCC exam. That's basically similar to the SBAC. We need bold action. We stand ready to work on this issue, but it's time for more teaching and learning, less testing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.